let's start off with your kid growing up in LA and you want to be an architect. Let's go.
Yeah. First, thanks for everyone for coming out. It really means a lot to us, and it means a lot to Homie and myself that you would come out and listen to me share some stories. So I grew up in South Central LA. I grew up thinking I was going to be an architect my whole entire life. I grew up 3 blocks away from USC in the rougher side of USC. It doesn't look like that anymore, which is great. But I was always fascinated with the built environment and the ideation process of coming up with an idea and then putting it on paper. When I studied architecture and worked at a firm, I can draw upside down. Could you talk to clients that way over lunch, which is a useless talent.
That is a
by
talent.
the way. But it was really fascinating to me to have that sort of, it's an idea, and then all of a sudden it gets on paper, then there's some software involved like CAD and drawings, and then all of a sudden the developer says we're going to build this thing, and then it's built, and then it becomes a space that's inhabited by humans. And the fascination for me for architecture was just to get a reaction out of people, right? Whether it's a good reaction or whether it's a bad reaction, that was really, really fun. And that's what I thought I was going to do. But then unfortunately, my parents got divorced. My mom raised 3 kids all by her own when I was about 8, and she's an angel and an amazing human being. And then she remarried after about 8 years, and then we moved to Las Vegas, which is an interesting place to grow up when you're 17 or 18. But I still pursued architecture and studied architecture at UNLV.
So you study architecture. Thank you. We'll just pass back and forth. You study architecture. And then all of a sudden you become kind of fascinated with real estate. Yeah, tell me where that goes.
It was really interesting. So one of my passions, and still a passion of mine to this day, is architecture. And when I was waiting tables on the Las Vegas Strip, it was just really interesting to marry hospitality and design and everything that went into that. Here you have a kid from South Central LA, and then I opened up a restaurant, and I asked the general manager, tell me a little bit about this space, because it was beautiful. And he said, yeah, it's beautiful, tell me a little bit about it, and then tells me that it was $14 million to build out. And it blew my mind. There's way too many zeros that I'd ever seen in my life. And marrying those two things, which I fell in love with, which was hospitality and food and beverage and architecture, and then half my wait staff, which is really interesting, and this is more the Homie creation story, is half the wait staff were becoming licensed real estate agents, and then the other half were becoming
as most wait staff does.
Yes, that's right. And then loan officers were the other half. And then this is 2003, 2004, 2005, leading up to 2008, obviously, what ended up happening. And it just grew a fascination with real estate and the way it worked. Not proud of this, but during that time, we were buying homes 2 at a time, stated income, no money down. 2 homes turned into 4. 4 turned into 6, 6 turned into 8, et cetera, et cetera. And then the music stopped in 2008. And again, this is really where the Homie creation story comes from, because what happened to me and what happened to hundreds of thousands of people along the Sun Belt in America was the way the system is really broken. It's really backwards in our opinion, in my personal opinion. And every time I ask for help, because renter number 2 and 3 now stopped paying their rent, and then 3 and 4, and then 5 and 6. And then what ended up happening is every time I pleaded for help from these friends that I had and professionals, what ended up happening is, hey, Mike, everything is okay, but when do you want to buy your next home? When do you want to do your next deal? And I quickly realized that I was just a 6% commodity, and I ended up losing everything. Half the portfolio was short sold. The other half was repossessed by the banks. And that's super personal and super private, and I share that because it was a very intimate thing that happened, and I woke up one day, almost 10 years to the day, saying that it's my mission in life to fix this. I will do whatever it takes to make this industry right and transform this industry, not just disrupt it. And that was an idea that came to mind 10 years ago, almost to the day. Yeah, almost.
Always lemons.
Especially with AV.
Oh, you are pretty much down and out, broke. So you go back to school? Is that correct?
That's exactly what happened. So what do you do in a recession? You go back to college because no one's hiring and no one's hiring architects. So what ended up happening is I went back to college and studied finance. And then I was fascinated with the whole investment banking. I'd spent some time in New York prior to 2000 innate, and the people that I was hanging out with I thought were playing it safe. They were accountants, they were in finance, they were investment bankers, and I said, I'm going to do that, I'm going to play it safe. So I decided to go back to college and then started my career in finance as an investment banker, which was a wonderful experience, a great learning experience for me. Really learned a technical asset and a skill set that I can leverage at some point in time and still do that to this day, which is around financial modeling and finance and accounting. And then the other piece, which is more on the EQ side, is the art of doing a deal, whether it was an M&A transaction or whether it was a capital raise, institutional debt or equity. It was a really great opportunity for me not to be in a huge Big Four bulge bank, but to be really one degree in the room removed, as a part of the board decisions and all these transactions that were happening. And that was really, really wonderful for me to learn that experience. But 14-hour days, every single day, every Sunday, was really, really tough. And tough on a marriage, by the way.
Are you still married?
Yes, to my beautiful wife, Mallory, who's here and super supportive of me. So keep it up with it.
So this is a question that I usually ask later, but since you brought it, beautiful. When you're building a startup, how do you balance home life and startup life? Like how, because you're so busy, how do you balance that?
How do we balance work and life? It's hard. I'd love to say that it's very easy and there's a recipe for that. I think you have to do what works for you and what works for my wife and I. She's super supportive. That she's as much of a founder of this business as I am. We were up one day until 4:30 in the morning talking about should I be leaving, a very nice, cushiony venture capital job that I had earned and got. And she tells me at 4 in the morning one day, this is a huge idea, it's a big opportunity, you can do this. If not you, then someone else is going to do this. So she's been super supportive from the beginning. I think communication is key, managing expectations. I used to say, hey, honey, I'm flying to whatever city tomorrow, and she's like, seriously, you didn't tell me? So I've learned that communication is definitely key.
Calendars.
Yeah, for sure. We started doing that, which she disliked early on, but it helps her too. So I think communication and patience is really important in a relationship and making that stuff work. And when I come home, I should not turn it off. So that's something that I would share to any entrepreneurs, whether you have a partner at home or a wife or what have you, or husband. Just try not to turn it off when you go home. You have 2 full-time jobs, and your spouse has a full-time job as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. So
yes.
So let's go back to the investment banking, because I know a lot of people are starting to raise capital. They're really interested in working with VCs. What did you learn from working with VCs, and what advice can you give anyone that's trying to raise capital?
How many entrepreneurs are here today? How many entrepreneurs are trying to raise cash but haven't yet? Okay, awesome. So about half the room is still trying to raise cash. I think I learned more on the venture capital side than I did on the investment banking side in terms of capital raising as an entrepreneur. One, I would say you can't do it alone, right? So if you're a founder or a CEO thinking that you're going to be able to do everything alone, I think that's a fallacy in my personal opinion. I think it's better to own 15 or 10% of something real and something big than 100% of nothing that you can get off the ground. So I think that's really important. When investors invest in businesses, especially early on, they're only investing in the team, because the team is what's going to execute on the strategy, and the team, if they have good domain expertise and a lot of experiences in certain ways, the probability of success increases dramatically. I'm a finance, accounting, strategy, tax, data guy, but I don't build software, and I'm not necessarily a salesperson. And when you think about raising capital, I would suggest that even if you have to work for free, which, by the way, I've done that twice in my career as an investment banker, and then as a venture capitalist, I worked for free for a handful of months, because 1, I wanted to make sure I enjoyed the experience, and 2, I wanted to learn. And I wanted to provide value, and then hopefully at some point in time get paid for it. So if you can spend a little bit of time in a venture capital fund, especially the seed stage, it's super helpful for you to understand the dynamic that happens between the limited partner and GP relationships, portfolio construction, meaning where in the life of that portfolio and investment period where you're startup B, because if you're the first one, the standards may be a little bit higher. If you're the last one, same thing. But then in the middle of the fund, investors get a little bit riskier and they get a little bit more excited and push the envelope more. So you want to make sure that you ask all these series of questions. How much do you invest in a business? Do you follow on? How much do you reserve in dry powder and capital for that business? And that's a really good experience to have. But having more talent around the table that can answer all the questions, at least thoughtfulness, like when a seed investor asks you, well, tell me about your CAC to LTV ratio. It's like, dude, I haven't even built a line of code. Like, right? One, that investor may not be the right fit, right? So when you start pitching investors, soundboard off of a lot of people. And that's one of the things that I got lucky when I started thinking about, like, this is an opportunity. And when I was at Mercado Partners, it was great because I saw Lyft come through my desk. And this is late 2014. And that's one of the things that got me super fascinated, the whole shared economy concept and dynamics that were happening. So I tried to become a subject matter expert on that piece, right? Tried to learn as much as I could, and then started soundboarding off of a lot of people. And that's how I met my entrepreneurs and co-founders who had done, bigger businesses that I ever had. And they were in Utah, which is amazing. And, both of them built arguably a real estate software business worth north of $1 billion.
Well, we'll get back to, I have more questions on that, but let's get to Homie. And I was supposed to start off this talk with, hey, homie.
Well, you did now.
Yeah, microphone issues, I think. So Lyft comes across your desk. You become fascinated with this dual-sided marketplace economy, gig economy. You have this idea 10 years ago. How did you build Homie? Who are your other co-founders, and why Utah?
I think there's sort of things that I love to share, and it's around 3 C's: creation, story, and we talk a lot about product market fit. Have you guys ever heard that concept? Have you guys ever heard of founder product fit? Not a lot, right? And that's what VCs talk about is are you the right person? Is your team the right team to go build this Uber for whatever type of industry? And that says a lot, right? And I believe this to my bones, and I believe this to the core. There's nothing that I'm supposed to be doing besides Homie. And I know that this is for me, but I think so do the people around that, and so do our investors. It was, I think, January 31st, so almost, again, 10 years to this day, a little bit closer to that. I got introduced to Johnny Hanna, who's our CEO and co-founder, and he was the president and co-founder of a business called Entrada, which is in the real estate software space in Utah, 2 miles away from where we live, which is really, really awesome.
Fate.
It is. The stars started aligning, and there's a little bit of luck in all this, but I believe that the luck favors those who are prepared, or something like that. I think the saying goes. I butcher these things all the time. English is not my second language, so that's why. That's my excuse. And when we started, and I pitched him on his last day, he was leaving, and here's a guy who was the president and co-founder of arguably a billion-dollar business in the real estate software space, and I had this financial model that I peel out of a dirty napkin, and I say, hey, Johnny, I have this idea. You built this here before, and I want some help, and I want to share this with you. And I said, the name of the company is going to be called Homie, and he said, I'm in. I don't care what you do, and it wasn't that easy. He took some time off. He got talking to his wife. My wife and I got to know Paige and Johnny really, really well, and he said, this is a great opportunity, and we're trying to do the same thing that he did for the apartment space. They build software, whole value chain and soup to nuts, but they onboard and offboard renters, and we onboard and offboard buyers and sellers of real estate, right? So very, very similar on what we're trying to build. And he had been there, he had done that, highly respected in the community in Utah. And then the same thing with Mike Trianfo. Johnny had asked me if I coded. I said, no, that's not a skill set that I have yet. I pitched Mike Trianfo over breakfast. And I said, what do you think of real estate agents and the traditional model that exists right now in the industry? And he said, I'm in. I don't know what you're doing. And I said, well, the name of the company is called Homie. He said, now I'm really, really in. And that's how the 3 founders came together.
So all good ideas do start on a napkin?
They do, all of them.
Just to clarify. So for the audience who doesn't know much about Homie, can you just give us a brief synopsis of what Homie does?
So what Homie does, it's a platform that enables people to buy and sell real estate. We use technology to streamline the whole process. We use professionals at the right time, from left to right. If you think about listing a home or buying a home and everything that happens in between, we have domain experts that are licensed in their certain regard to do a bunch of transactions and delight the customer and answer all those questions. For example, has anyone signed up one of their homes on Airbnb and gone through that listing process? That's exactly what we do on the listing flow, right? So it takes about 40 minutes. We're building some software. They'll do it in about 4 over the next 12 months, and that's really, really exciting. But you'll have a listing coordinator just in case you're having some hiccups or you don't understand one thing or another. Once you get your pricing, you get a VR, a valuation range on your home, and a CMA, and if you have some issues with how the home is priced, well, you can pick up the phone and call Katie, one of our pricing specialists, who's a licensed agent, and that's all she does. And then once you get an offer, we have contract specialists, which most of them are licensed attorneys. So every step along the way, we want to make sure that we have great people that are super talented on what they do and can provide that value there. And then at the back end of the transaction, when you're getting ready to close on your transaction, we have closing specialists and transaction coordinators guiding you all the way through, working with the loans, working with appraisers and inspectors and all that good stuff to have a great experience. And it's the same thing on the buy side. And on the buy side, we kind of Uberize this in a little bit, where within 59 minutes or so, if you want to tour a home in Scottsdale, we'll have a local homie agent that can open the door for you within 59 minutes or so, and show you other homes in the area and make sure that you're being held in the right way to provide a great experience. And up to this day, on a blended basis, our net promoter score, which is a little bit about referrals and customer satisfaction, is north of a 75, which is outstanding. That's world class. So that's how it works.
Okay. And is there anything that Homie does not do? Have you ever been asked, like, oh, do you guys do this? And you can say, is there a couple things that you can reference?
Yeah, so what people ask is, well, what's the difference between you and someone else? So on the sell side, there is no difference for using Homie to sell your home than a traditional agent. We're just not going to see you at your kitchen counter and talk through all these things, and in our opinion, what we believe is inefficient. What we're going to do is put software in your hand to walk you through that process, and any point along the way, you can talk to a human being. You can have in-app messaging, email, telephone, or whatever, to get the answers done and make sure you get everything handled accordingly. So we don't do any commercial real estate yet, and what we're trying to build at Homie is a full stack platform. So if you think about Homie, we want to be ubiquitous with real estate. And for us, what that means is if you're buying real estate or you're selling real estate, before, during, and after the whole transaction, we want to make sure that we can service you. So at some point in time, we'll launch Homie Title and Escrow. We started Homie Loans, which is our mortgage business. And as of January, 94% of our Homie buyers are using Homie Loans. That's just an incredible attachment rate, and we're really, really proud. But it's not been easy. It's been super difficult and challenging.
Yeah, tell us about that. We want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly.
That's how you learn.
Yeah,
So.
Absolutely. If that's interesting to the group here, things always take a lot longer than one expects, right? You do some things and you learn and you iterate, and if you make sure that you listen to the customer internally and also externally, so your employees are also your customers, and you got to make sure that you keep them happy and have a high degree of respect, and you're hiring the right culture. And sometimes they get frustrated because we want to build things a lot faster than we can, right? But if you start scaling things prematurely, it's going to break. And it's going to break super, super fast. And we've done that a handful of times, which is challenging at times, but now it makes it more rewarding when we get to a 94% attachment, right? So you gotta lean into certain problems. And if you think about, we want to be a lender at some point in time, and that means underwriting our own loans. That means balance sheeting our own cash and then selling it off to third-party buyers of mortgage. So, well, what do you do first? Well, can we prove that we can have an above average attachment rate, right? North of 50%. Home builders are about 65%. And we started doing that, and just very similarly to like Zillow and LendingTree, they're at about 5%. So we started sharing these leads with other lenders, and we were closing them at a 17.5, 18% clip. So we started light, we started testing the strategy, we were exceeding the market as it exists today, and then we said, okay, that's awesome, this is working. And then we said, well, we want to be a lender at some point in time. What's the next step? And the next iteration for us was becoming a broker. So we acquired a boutique mortgage broker, we ripped out a bunch of stuff, we homified the brand, We put in software and systems, compensation structures, making sure that everything was aligned around customer service, again, internally and externally. And then things started working. We started putting teams together. We started organizing sales. We started operationalizing sales. And that took 14, 15 months. And then now we've achieved that 94% attachment rate. So.
And in 18 months, you became the #1 listing broker in Utah.
Yeah, we did. You heard.
I've heard.
Yeah, so some background there, in sort of the concept and thread about leaning into a problem. You can't boil the ocean at once. It's just not going to work. You have to be a domain expert at one thing. And for us, we know that for marketplaces, and we have to prove this obviously, is that the sell side brings the demand. If you have demand but no supply, you can't make a market, right? And when we started this, we said, what are the biggest pain points? The biggest pain points is that we feel and that consumer feels that paying a traditional real estate commission is not worth the value they get in return. And again, we have licensed agents. We're a licensed real estate broker. We're not anti-agent. We're anti-6% commission. That's sort of one of our constitutional concepts there. And for us, we said, okay, we know that that's the pain point, right? We know that the seller pays the fees, and it's 6%, right? So if we go tackle that one problem, prove that we can become great at selling, and that's what we've done in the small size that we have here in Phoenix and a larger size in Salt Lake. We can sell homes faster than the market, and we can sell them for more, which means more of your hard-earned equity in your pocket. And what we did there was, if we focus on the sell side and know that we're leaving money on the table, everything else will follow. And keeping our heads down, making sure we're focused on that piece, that's how we got to be the #1 listing broker in Utah.
And so now you want to move to our town of Phoenix. Well, you already have moved here.
We have.
Yeah,
we
you're
have.
here.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how you plan to tackle your second market. Have a little bit of Coke, because I drove a long way for that.
Thank you. That's really good. We've had, if we can call it success, we've had tremendous success in Utah, and we're really proud of that. And it's not been easy, and it's been a lot of teamwork, and I think we've built a world-class team. I think all of our employees are pretty awesome. The team that we're building here in Phoenix is second to none, and I couldn't be more proud to be attached with these people and have them on the team, because they're super amazing, and they know the community really, really well. One of the things that we learned is Phoenix is, in my opinion, the most important part of our business. When we prove that we can scale Phoenix, and I think it's 6 more months of that proof point to happen, I think the whole world becomes our oyster. And I think that opportunity is because we've worked so hard before and figuring things out, making mistakes and learning from those pieces. And real estate is super localized, right? I would love to say that it is super easy to do, and it's not. We have to make sure that we understand the Southeast Valley. As you know, it's very different than Tempe, which is very different than Glendale, which is very different than Scottsdale. And that's one of those things that, from an office IKEA chair in South Jordan, Utah, I didn't know that, right? So I'm in market every single week for at least 2 days, getting to know the community like you guys and sharing ideas and being trying to be as helpful first. And if there's an opportunity to help each other, I think that's a good strategy.
Why did you pick Phoenix?
That was really easy, and sort of proof points to the community here. Everyone that I've met with has been super kind. Everyone that I've met with has been, how can I help you? I love the brand. I love what you're doing. I've heard about you, and how can I be helpful? So I think that that's really powerful for us, and those are sort of qualitative things that you can't really quantify on a spreadsheet. But since I am a finance and data guy, I'll talk about spreadsheets because I really love them. We built this model where we have 15 or 16 columns, and we weighted things all kinds of ways, right? And 40% of the housing stock has been built in Phoenix in the last 40 years, right? That means no lead disclosures and all this other stuff that happens that slows down a transaction. The transparency and the fluidity of the transactions is really, really fast, right? There's over 110,000 transactions that happen here every single year. I mean, that is huge market opportunity for any player that comes in, and for incumbents alike. And then what is really exciting is you guys are still growing. Yeah. Phoenix is still growing like crazy, right? There's a lot of startups. The ecosystem here is really, really strong. and there's a lot of employment, and it's a lot of diversity as well. There's a lot of healthcare and tech community and finance and all these things that need to be really robust and create this dynamic where there's longevity in the real estate industry. And there's all other boring things that I can quantify and share, but I don't want to put you guys to sleep. But there's a lot of reasons why we pick.
Spreadsheets. Keep going. So you talked a lot about building a team, and you can only have success like this if you have a good team. Tell us more about how you built a team and your perspectives on that.
I'll say this again. I think I said it a little bit earlier. Is I think you build a team unselfishly, and again, I believe that it's better to own 15% of something meaningful and real than 100% of nothing, and we believe that at Homey. I think a part of that team and the extension is the family we have at home. Mallory allows me to do all kinds of things, and she's super supportive. And sometimes when I come home, I wear my feelings on my face. Like if I'm happy, you're gonna know. If I'm not so happy, unfortunately, you're also gonna know. And she knows, hey, how was your day? Let's talk about some things. And she allows me to soundboard off some things that maybe I wouldn't have thought of the same way, right? And that's also a part of your team. And I would say don't take that lightly. It's really important, I think, for longevity of entrepreneurs and the cohesiveness of the executive team. So at Homey, Johnny is an amazing human being, and he's super kind. And when I was learning more about him, I asked people around, and they would text me, why are you asking? Is he hiring? Because people want to work with him. People gravitate towards him. Same thing with Mike Triunfo. Mike Triunfo has great business acumen. And for CTOs, are there any CTOs in the house or technical people? Every once in a while, there's these gems that have really good business acumen, and I've seen a lot of CTOs be super technical, and I'm just like, I have no idea what you just said, but he's not like that.
They can break it down into English for you.
That's right, and Spanish, which is great, which is really, really cool, right? And then our CMO, Joe Grover, he worked at Mercado Partners as well. We didn't overlap a lot, but he was really close to the fund, and this guy is absolutely amazing, and I trust him, and I trust all my partners. Because they have this domain expertise that doesn't overlap with my I'm not a sales and marketing guy. I pretend to be. I love talking about billboards. Have you guys seen any of our billboards? I think they're great. They're on brand, right? They're a little bit snarky, a little bit edgy. And by the way, that's one of the 3 things why consumers use us, because they want to be a part of something that's much bigger than an average transaction, right? They want to be a part of a brand. They don't want to transact with a vendor. But that's not my skill set. And Joe, he's been the CEO of a venture-backed business. He's been the CMO of a venture-backed business, right? Like all these people, I would say, are much smarter than I, and especially in their domains. And we don't overlap a lot, but we do soundboard off of each other because it's really helpful to validate ideas. No one can build a spreadsheet at my executive team like I can, but I soundboard off of them, and I make sure that assumptions get kind of gut checked, that we're not modeling these things out like crazy. Jack Hambley, who's our VP of Real Estate Operations, the guy is amazing, and he's brilliant, and he's super smart, and he has a really pure passion for real estate and delighting customers. He went to Yale for his undergrad, and he got his law degree at the University of Virginia. And he just is amazing, and the opportunity that we have to attract these people and these talents that would sacrifice relationships, because the average real estate agent, they don't like us, right? But the consumer does. As a matter of fact, the consumers love us, and that's why we stay focused on what we do, and I think we've had some success doing that. And then our VP of Legal and HR, she came from Goldman Sachs, and she's been in high pressure situations and negotiations and transactions at Goldman Sachs, and she's just amazing for us, and she's great at what she does, and she has a passion for HR and legal. She was flipping homes on the side with her mom for fun, right? Like these are all people that have a true passion for real estate and the disruption that we're paving the way for and doing and leading. So when you think about those people and how you build a team, you have to understand, what are they really, really good at? If you were going to pay them for one thing and one thing only, what would that one thing be? And you'll quickly find out that they have 3 or 4 skill sets that are amazing, and you get a lot of value out of that.
So it sounds like everybody's kind of stays in their lane, but also can translate over. which is great too.
We don't believe in staying in your lane.
Okay, no.
Yeah, don't ever say that to
Swerve.
people, especially early on. That we had a little dynamic that happened at Homey, so that's a very intimate, and it kind of gives me a little bit of PTSD every once in a while.
Tell me about this.
I can't.
This is what I want to dig into.
I cannot.
You
know, staying in your lanes. That concept could not be the most removed thing from a startup. You have to break things. You have to learn fast. You have to move quickly. Disruption cannot happen if you're staying in your lanes. Probably by definition, right? Like if you're trying to disrupt something, you should not stay in your lane. You should probably go on the opposite side of that, right? So you should not stay in your lane.
And what do you say to your haters?
Thank you.
Oh, okay. There's a book called Hug Your Haters. You can say thank you, embrace them. So we have a few more questions that I'll get to, and then audience will be doing a Q&A. So think of your questions. We'll be passing out around a mic. And one thing I forgot to mention, our sponsors so kindly donated 2 $50 gift cards. So if you can hashtag Startup Grind on Twitter or Instagram, we're going to pick a winner at the end. So
and try Homey.
And Homey, try Homey. Absolutely.
Selfless plug.
Plug. He's not a salesman. Yeah, right. So let's hear some lessons that you've learned as a founder for, found people that want to build a startup. Obviously, stay in your lane is not one. We go all over the lanes. What are some other lessons that you've learned?
One of the things that we've learned or me personally is, I think the tech community may have this obsession with, the founder and CEO has to be this like crazy, rude a-hole of a guy. And that's not true. That's absolutely not true. And for us, I believe that around the executive table, any one of my partners can be the CEO of the business. That's how much talent I think we have at the table, and I think that's really commendable, and that's a team thing. That has nothing to do with myself. That just has everyone to be on the same table and believe in the same core values. But as you think about, I have to be this, I have to be a know-it-all, or I have to, there's a lot of humility that happens. I've been told no 116 times. 116 times. And it's painful and sort of leads me to my other point. But why did they say no? Was I arrogant? Was I not as smart on the subject as I thought I was? Did the pitch not go as well? Were the slides too long, too short? There's always an opportunity for self-reflection and looking in the mirror. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned, I think now that's been a humbling experience, that I don't know everything. As a matter of fact, I don't have to know everything. I could find really smart people to answer those questions for us. And when people say no, it's an opportunity for internal reflection and say, what could I have done better before I go say, oh, that VC is stupid, right? And for my fellow colleagues and entrepreneurs here that want to raise money, when an entrepreneur says no, it's usually a not now. Right. It's usually like, I don't think there's enough traction or enough conviction. You'll hear that often. We don't have enough conviction around this industry. It's just like, if I hear that word one more freaking time, I promise I'm going to go crazy. But as you talk to entrepreneurs, just know that there's a high probability of a no, because VCs generally don't have an incentive because they have, a bunch of deals outside of the door coming, and they talk to really smart entrepreneurs. Another thing is that I think now more than ever, any entrepreneur can put a product in a person's hand faster and cheaper and better than any time in the history of the world. And nothing proves VC wrong better than traction. And I think more importantly to yourself, right? That you can, I talked about architecture earlier, that you can come up with an idea, put it on a piece of paper, and then people are using it a lot faster than ever before. And that validation, that product market fit, I think is super helpful. So learning that you can easily lean into something and kind of test it a little bit and have that traction to continue proving things on. So I hope that was helpful.
One last question before I do my flash round of questions and we really get to know you. What's your big dream for Homey? 5 years down the road, where do you want it to be?
I think it's around two things. I would say three. I think that my family is proud of what I've done. I think that means a lot to me personally, especially my wife. She's the most important person in my life. And And I think if we can look back and say, we're really proud of the work that we've done. We've saved Arizonans and Utahns north of $34 million, right? Like that is the most important thing for us at Homey. And that's the number one KPI we follow because that's important. And to share some of the stories that, if I may, with why we wake up every day, there's a family that could not conceive. I have 2 beautiful children, and for me, that's super personal. But they saved $24,000 by using Homey, and they invested in vitro, and now they have a baby. So Johnny got an email that said miracle baby / Homey baby, and there's pictures of this beautiful baby boy in a Homey onesie because we had to hook him up. But we enabled that, we empowered that, we made that happen. So when I have crappy days, if I do have crappy days, that helps me get out of bed. When it's 2:30 in the morning and I know that I have to catch an 8 a.m. flight and I have to drive to the airport, that's what helps me wake up, because that's the right work that we should be doing. And again, I believe that to my bones and to my core that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And selling real estate on Mars.
We'll have some takers. All right, this is kind of my favorite part because I just like to get to know our founders a little bit more intimately. So we're going to do some rapid fire questions.
Let's do it.
So, you ready? All right.
Are you ready? Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
This is going to be scary.
Disney or Universal Studios?
Disney all day.
Disney all day, no Harry Potter. Favorite app on your phone?
My Homey app, of course.
Plug. Mac or PC?
Mac.
Favorite holiday?
My wife's birthday.
Wow, he is earning points for Valentine's Day. My fiance better be taking some notes. Favorite vacation spot?
Favorite vacation spot. Man, when my wife and I got married, we took our honeymoon in Mayacoba, which is in Playa del Carmen.
Oof.
And that was freaking amazing. And they had just opened and it was like 50% off. That made it even better. But that was an amazing experience, and the warmth and the water, and it was just beautiful. And we always say we're going to go back, but we'll pick another place. And it's like, why don't we go there? But Mayacoba.
Favorite book?
Favorite book? There's 2. One of them is Tribes. Please read that. If you're an entrepreneur, read Tribes by Seth Godin. And then the other one is Essentialism by Greg McEwen.
TV show?
The Bachelor. That is entertainment. If you're having a bad day at work, let me tell you, get a Mexican Coke. Turn on
I
some
should have brought
Hulu.
him a rose. Favorite sport?
Football.
Anything you collect?
Anything shoes?
Good. Yeah. Secret talent?
I could draw upside down.
Oh, we already learned that. Top strength as a founder, other than spreadsheets.
Oh, I get just done. I just get stuff done. That's our nickname, GSD. My nickname's Hustle. So everyone at Homey has a nickname. It's part of our culture. If you don't pick one or have one, then one will be assigned to you. So
One wants
good,
that.
bad, or ugly. Who knows? They're usually pretty dope.
What is the best compliment someone can give you?
That I am a good father and husband.
And then, I'm not being very rapid.
I'm not being very rapid.
And then,
For the last one, so we can get to some.
questions. One thing on your bucket list.
I want to tour Europe with my wife. I think that'd be really, really, really awesome.
Try Homey Europe.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm the first one to launch that market.
All right, Christina has the mic for some questions. We have a question up here.
And please ask some questions. I love this part. If I could be of any help or use to you guys and have like the pains that I've had and shorten that gap for you guys, my email is mikep@homey.com. Like, I'm happy to answer any questions and make some time to grab lunch. We all have to eat. So breakfast, lunch, not dinner, unless I'm here without my wife. I'm happy to share any experiences that would be helpful to you guys.
That's a pretty nice offer. Email.
What's up, man? My name is Brady. Love the billboards. We can talk about like the edgy thing that gets me. I like being like a rebel in a mature way, I guess. The traditional stuff, when stuff gets disrupted, it's cool. My wife, I also have a wife and kids. 16-month-old boy and one coming in April, another boy. So it's awesome, but I'm in like the infancy stages of entrepreneurship. I'm in conception phase. Like I haven't even started anything, but I want to. I love your respect for your family. Like the fact that you speak of your wife so highly and your kid, that's huge, 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 really cool, really respectable. I feel the same way, so, and I want to stay that way as I pursue something. So what are the big challenges that you've seen to look out for as I start to grow or do something and hustle at 12 a.m. and my wife's like, what's going on? You know what I mean? Give me some tips on that if you have anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I shared some of the stuff. But first of all, he's got some nice pair of kicks, so check those out too. Just have a North Star, whatever that is, personally, spiritually, or in business. Make sure that the reason you're doing this is for the right things. At Homey, we talk about value, not valuation. And there's all kinds of startups raising uber amounts of money, literally. And sometimes entrepreneurs and co-founders they just get so pregnant on the idea that they want to be the next XYZ/CEO. And look, man, if I can do okay and provide health insurance for my family and a great education, my parents were immigrants and my mom is 58 and she's getting her GED. Like, that is freaking amazing, man. And if I can provide that for my family, then everything else is going to be great. I'll make whatever money is at the end of the road a rainbow for me. But the reason why we do what we do is because we're I was gonna say we're conceiving babies, but we're not. We're enabling that to happen where people are, the average American has $457 in their savings account. If you get into a car accident, your premium's what? Your deductible's $500. You can't even cover that. And we're saving consumers $10,000 at a time. Like, that's really, really meaningful. It's life-changing amounts of money. So just stay true to your North Star. Your wife is your partner, and make sure that you just always communicate that, because your kids are not going to get any younger. You're not going to get any younger, right? And there's something to said about timing, right? And luck will favor you if you're prepared.
Oh. Hi, Corey. I have not seen your billboards yet, but love the thought process behind it. Authenticity is something that's missing a lot in today's world, and that makes makes companies very successful these days. I'm kind of doing, or trying to attempt to do the same thing that you're doing in real estate and the car auto buying industry with my business, dealer negotiator. So I'm curious to hear. It sounds like you started in Utah and you're in Utah. So Utah, now you're expanding to Phoenix. So it sounds kind of niched down to a very specific market. So I'm curious to know your thoughts and how you guys decided between ever a thought process of maybe having it throughout the U.S. at first, or did you just know that just niching down, starting in Utah and kind of building it out from there would have been the better? Like, how did you decide whether to go small market or just overall immediately? What brought you to just the Phoenix thought, I guess?
So first of all, we were broke, so we couldn't launch all these other areas, right? Like, that's cash, at least for some of us, is a finite object, right? Especially when you're trying to disrupt a big industry. Like, I have a bunch of friends in the VC space that said, Mike, I love you. I think you're great, man. But like, you're talking about disintermediating a 100-year-old business, the second largest lobbying power in the nation behind big pharma. Like, that's noble of you, but traction, right? Go prove that you can make this happen. So when you have finite resources, you have to make sure that you're just thinking about things, maybe sleeping on them a little bit longer. What we started seeing in the marketplace is a lot of upstarts in the prop tech or real estate space, technology, software companies that were out there. They were running out of money, right? They would launch 6 areas all at once, and that was a proof point for us. And then the finance side, the sort of investment banker, VC guy in me, is unit economics, right? Unit economics is one of the most important KPIs that you should be monitoring in your business, because it's a line of sight to potentially scaling the business. And then the other thing is profitability, right? Like, if you're not going to build a profitable business, you better be growing at 50% month over month for 3 years straight. That's the only way that that's sustainable, where you can at least fund your losses with venture capital and private equity, right? So we have positive unit economics in Utah, and they look great, and everyone was super proud of that. Investors, external potential investors and partners, but then it was, well, now you have to go scale another business or another area, right? So, and then doing the homework, right? Like we took a quantitative approach and then layered on some qualitative things about why Phoenix is awesome, right? Specifically, the Southeast Valley looks very similar to Utah, right? From a cultural dynamic, there's a lot of transient traffic that happens and goes back and forth between Utah and the Southeast Valley of Phoenix. So those kinds of things helped us. And then just soundboarding off of other people, right? You have a board if you're raising money, you have investors, you have really smart people. A lot of our angel investors or non-institutional investors, they're all real estate people. They understand it really, really well. And they said, you're going to take the learning curve from here to here to maybe here from their advice, right? So don't just ask for money, ask for advice. And I think that that's something that's helpful. The background music is amazing.
I know, I gotta turn that off.
Hey, Mike.
Oh.
What's going on?
What's up, homie?
So I just wanted to ask if Homie had any plans for providing solutions within the renters market, and if you had any thoughts around that in the Phoenix area. What could be changed? What are some things that you would maybe do different as someone renting out a home or a person renting a home yourself?
I think the rental opportunity is one. It's real estate. We want to do everything and anything with real estate, whether it's commercial or apartment, whether it's acquisition or disposition of whole apartments. There's a big opportunity there. There's so much stuff that we have to do. And every year we focus on another vertical. So year 1 was the sell side part of real estate. Year 2 was buy side. Year 3 was really that attachment rate that I shared with you guys earlier. This year, going on year number 4, we're thinking about title and escrow and homeowners insurance. And we think we've laid down that foundation and that trust to really earn the trust of the consumers and say, hey, here's all these other services that, by the way, are going to be 50% off traditional fees because we have less fat, for lack of a better phrase. But the renter opportunity, I think it'll be a good funnel, right? If we have some sort of listing something or whatever for renters, at some point in time they become buyers, right? But right now, and this is the state of the environment right now with mortgage rates, they're creeping up, but they're still lower than when our parents bought homes. Like there's 18%, 19% interest rate, which is just crazy. But I think at some point in time, we want to facilitate the American dream. And I think by removing a lot of the efficiencies, there's about 12% to 14% of fat and fees. We think over the next 4 or 5 years, we can nail that down to like 1 or 2%. Was that helpful? Okay. I do a horrible job of answering questions.
All right, I hope you do a better job at this one. Just kidding. So I first heard of Homie when I was driving by one of your political signs, or quote political signs. So bold, interesting, had me. I mean, maybe shouldn't admit this, driving and looking up your company. But my question is, can you tell me some of the outcomes, positive, negative, maybe some cringeworthy moments that came out of that marketing campaign?
Yes, and I think I'm bound by saying less than more on this specific question. We have some pillars and in our marketing department that we've learned, and one of them is if a traditional competitor can say it or do it, we won't do it. From a marketing standpoint, right? If it's not frugal and cash conscious, we're not going to do it. We're just not going to spray and pray. That's not something that we feel it's the right strategy, especially with investors' money, especially with our own money. One of our core values is more money, more problems, right? And just because we have money in the bank and we're venture backed doesn't mean we're going to spend money like crazy, right? So that was a deliberate, strategic approach with a lot of homework, and it wasn't without risk. It was not without risk, right? But what we wanted to do is say, what can we do to intrigue the consumer and say that there's a different way, there's a new player in town, and we're on your side. We're about unlocking that equity that you worked so much for. That was very different than what traditional brokers do, right? And that was an outstanding win for us. I mean, I can't share too much about the whole thing, but the Arizona Division of Real Estate caught wind of it, and the Attorney General caught wind of it. All that stuff is public. But most importantly, the consumer realized that there's a new player involved in here, and that's on their side, and in a very interesting way, right? Where you were driving around and it caught your eye, and this is so different than anything else I've ever seen before, and you went to our website, right? And you discovered some stuff, and then hopefully we did a good job of educating you on that page. And it's constant iteration. So I hope that was helpful, and I'm sorry to be so elusive on that question. Okay. Oh, where's my phone? I need to show you. So we ran for Senate in the state of Arizona. We didn't win, but it was a marketing campaign that we did. You could just Google it, or I can share some pictures on it. It's in my favorites, and it was just an opportunity to just do something very different and educate the consumer that there's another opportunity. But we put 500 of these signs. I should shut up now.
And that question's over.
Thank you for asking that.
Patrick.
Hey, so buying a home is a large online purchase through your website. And I was just curious, how did you tackle that barrier and how did you get your initial users to trust you?
And you hit on a word, which is trust. At the end of the day, that's what we're selling. Net of everything, the brand, the color schema, the messaging. We're selling trust. You're entrusting us in an app to sell one of your most important assets. As a matter of fact, for the average 36-year-old, 93.3% of our net worth is tied to our home, right? And if you're going to sell it to a competitor or use a traditional agent, a lot of that's going to be gone. Right? And in Vegas, for example, 1 out of 4 homes is still underwater. 10 years later, still underwater. It may be 1 out of 5, but that's still 20%, right? It's still horrible. And we can enable some savings there. So one of the things we do is when we launch a market, we do friends and family, right? We want to do 2 things. We want to make sure we understand the real estate environment from that perspective, and they would actually block and tackle the transactions and make sure that we understand everything that goes on and get that to a number around 20 or something like that. And then we do the social proof, right? Well, if I see a like-minded individual that used Homey, I'm more inclined to use that, right? So you'll see testimonial videos. So if you go to homey.com/sell-az, you'll see that it's uniquely Arizona. It's uniquely Phoenix, right? And we have homes we have a $1.2 million home under contract. So whether it's a $200,000 home or a $2 million home, we can do that. The blocking and tackling of the transaction is very similar, right? A couple things around the edges that we'll learn here and there, but that social proof and testimonial goes a long, long way, right? And then you see a billboard, and then we come to your office and buy you guys lunch and share the story, which we're happy to do for any of your employers here and employees here. Another shameless plug.
Shameless.
Sorry, but that social proof goes a long way. It really does. And that's how you enable trust.
I think we have time for about 2 more questions.
Okay. I want to go back to something foundational to starting the company. And so one of the things I believe is you want to be successful is you look at attracting a team that's much better than you. It seems like you did that, and I just want to have you tell us a little bit about your personal dynamics as you got these other great people to join the team.
That's a great question.
Favorite topic. That's his favorite topic.
I could tell. His smile and his eyes are so huge. He probably knows more about the subject than I do. We think a lot about EQ and IQ, and EQ is just as important as IQ. When I was an investment banker, the culture in that industry is, unless you know with 100% certainty what it is, don't even open your mouth, right? And I grew up in that environment where there was a lot of sharp elbows, right? And I was punching above my weight class, because if I was going to say something, I knew it forwards, backwards, up and down. And I spent a lot of times ignoring my wife's phone calls, by the way, because I was working on some really high profile, hundreds of millions of dollar transactions that are on the line. And the world doesn't have to be that way. Startups don't have to be that way, right? Like, you don't have to work 24 hours every single day and put your team through the ringers. It ebbs and flows, on the finance side. When you're fundraising, it definitely does, right? But when you talk about building a team, build a team a lot faster than before. I got this advice from someone here locally, and they said I would have built a team a lot faster because it would have relieved a lot of my stresses, and you would have scaled a lot faster and been a lot more success, knowing that, building that team faster with the right things, right? Like, if you haven't done that job description yourself, or someone in your organization has, you probably shouldn't do it, right? Like if you're tackling that problem on your own for the first time, you got to understand that problem, right? As a founder, you have to be very intimate with that opportunity to make sure that when you hire people, you hire the right culture fit and all that stuff. And obviously ask about core values, get to know them. We hire slow. I think my team who's here knows that. And we try to fire fast, you know, and when you build a team around that, you may get it wrong, and that's okay. But if you spend a lot more time getting to know each other, the EQ part of the business, I think the probability of success dramatically increases, just materially increases if you spend more time.
Oh, good. We have our last question.
Hey, I'm Cody. So in the Phoenix area, the two major pain points consumers talk about when they're buying a home are the home search process and the mortgage process. Homie's got the latter one covered with Homie Loans. But in terms of the former there, are you guys planning any kind of major investment to optimize the home search process? I mean, anybody can go and put on your standard filters and like Zillow and whatnot. But what are you guys going to do to bring that forward to the next level?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity for this. You know, we're not at parity with a Redfin or a Zillow and all those search criteria, but those are just filters, right? And there's a lot of back-end stuff that goes into that. It's really, really complicated. But what we want to do is we want to, like, when you answer 3 or 4 questions on the onboarding process when you're a buyer, we want to get to know, are you qualified financially to get that? What you should be searching for. There's all these other things that we can do to underwrite you, but in terms of the search criteria, if you click on one picture, we can do some machine learning, picture image recognition that without you even touching another button, what will happen is you'll start getting all these feeds, right? And even so, it's 4 bedrooms, 2 bath, it's an A roof or some modern home or whatever style, and the more you click on those things, the more we learn, right? So when a home gets listed on Homie and then it's not on you know, it's not even published yet, you can get first dibs at that, right? And you'll get a notification when you're like, holy crap, like it's kind of creepy. It's kind of like Facebook, right? Like
I was just going to say, this is a little creepy.
Yeah, how much do they know about me, right? So that we become masters at delighting you during that search process. And this is, we have a product meeting for 30 minutes every week before our partner meeting. And I missed that yesterday because I was on a plane to come here. And that is my favorite meeting because what our product team and engineers are coming with, it's crazy. You think it's 20 years away, not soon, right? And engineer and talent, obviously we need to stack up there. But man, that's the kind of stuff that we're building to make that search criteria super, super easy.
Well, before I wrap this up, I want to recognize one group. We are all volunteers that run this. The tickets obviously pay for some of the food and that kind of stuff, but I just want to have our volunteers stand up and recognize them real quick. Woohoo, volunteers! And then right after this, we'll do an announcement. Melissa and Vincent are going to announce our winners for our Instagram and Twitter contest, thanks to Hul Curry and Coplex. But I want to wrap this up with thank you. Thank you so much for coming and spending your time with us, letting us learn a little bit more about you and Homie, and I'm excited to see what you guys do in Phoenix.
Thank you very much to you guys. Again, I really mean that. It means a lot that you guys would come out and you know, just listen to some of the stories and thoughts I have, and I appreciate that. And again, Phoenix is super important for us. We're building a team here. We're invested in the community here, and I think just Phoenix is awesome, especially in the wintertime.
Especially, yeah. We'll talk again in June. All right, thank you guys.